Hey everyone. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about the organizing the evaluation part of your essay. So an evaluation is when you are asked to make a determination about a particular um, topic, in our case art, and you're being asked to determine whether your particular painting is an example of the genre which it is from. Is it a good example? So, in other words, here's my example that I'm using for the lecture today. I have a picture of a building, and I'm going to argue that this particular church is an example of Romanesque architecture. All right, that's the argument I'm going to make. You can follow along in the sample essay I have for you on the Van Gogh painting if you like as well. That'll give you a couple of different examples here. All right, so I'm arguing that it's an example of Romanesque architecture. I can do a couple of different things. I'm going to have to, no matter how organized it, I'm going to have to develop my criteria of Romanesque architecture. How do I know that this picture, this church, is an example of Romanesque architecture? Well, what is Romanesque architecture? Well, I could pick a whole bunch of criteria, but I'm just going to look at three. I'm going to say that Romanesque architecture generally has images of people praying side by side with the image of whatever sin they're praying about. All right. They also have vibrant colors and patterns in the church, and they also have very simple compositions and very linear, elongated designs. All right. So what I could do, and I have two in this in this tutorial, I have two um, sample outlines for you. In this particular outline, I have my introduction in paragraph 1 and my thesis that I'm arguing that this is an example of Romanesque architecture. You're also being asked to have in between these two a descriptive paragraph. You're practicing your descriptive writing, so you'll have that as well. Then I'm asking you to explain what Romanesque architecture is in terms of its historical time period, who were some of the proponents of that time period or that particular style or movement. All right. And then we get into the evaluation part. In this first example, this first sample outline, I've opted to discuss all three of um, my characteristics, my criteria, in one paragraph. So I'm going to list all three of my criteria and explain what that means. What does it mean to have these images of supplicants praying side by side with images of the sins committed? What does that mean? So I'm going to explain all of my criteria in one paragraph. Then in my next paragraph, I'm going to take the first one of these images of supplicants, and I'm going to apply it to my church. I'm going to explain where in the church I've seen pictures of, just like they're talking about here. In my next paragraph, I'm going to talk about the vibrant patterns and colors. And again, I'm going to talk about my individual church here and say where there are vibrant patterns and colors. And I'll do the same thing in my third simple compositions. I'll explain how that can be applied to this particular church. Each one of those will have its own paragraphs. All right? And then, of course, you'll have your essay conclusion. In my second sample, I have the same, my introduction is the same. Again, remember in here you'll have a paragraph of description. You'll have an overview of your art form per the instructions. And then I'm doing something a little different with this outline. In this outline, instead of talking about all three of my criteria and explaining them, defining them in one paragraph, I'm going to explain them as I go. So my first paragraph, I'm going to explain what this criteria, this characteristic means, and then I'm going to apply it to my church up here. in the next paragraph, I'm going to explain what I mean by vibrant patterns and colors, and then I'm going to apply it to the church. And finally, I'm going to explain what simple compositions and linear elongated designs mean, and then I'm going to apply it to the church. And finally, I'll have a conclusion. So these are, there are other ways you could do this, but this is a very short writing that you're doing. Either one of these outlines would work for you just fine.